I'm often asked which expenses you should pay a volunteer. So the aim of this presentation is to give you some clarification of what you should and shouldn't pay a volunteer. It's untrue that volunteers can't receive expenses or training that's relevant to their role. But it does mean that when these things are given to volunteers, it should be clear that no payment for their work or time is intended. Neither does it mean that volunteers can never be rewarded. The rule of thumb is that a volunteer should not be rewarded with anything that either represents a cost to the organisation or that the volunteer could use to make a profit. Many groups and organisations reward their volunteers by holding events such as awards evenings, parties or dinners. This is totally acceptable, including inviting volunteers and employees to the same event. What can blur the boundaries presenting volunteers with vouchers or tickets to events that the organisation has had to buy or that could be sold on by the volunteer? Such a reward clearly has an economic value and again could be seen as earnings. It's also okay for an organisation to reward their volunteers with gifts when they leave or after many years of service, but these should be small, such as flowers or chocolates. They should also be one-offs to avoid creating an expectation that volunteers will be rewarded. What expenses do you think you can actually pay volunteers? Travel expenses. This covers actual costs of getting from home to the place of volunteering. If the volunteer is using their own transport, this needs to be costed by the organisation at or below the inland revenue mileage rate. Or if the volunteer is using public transport, the actual cost. Specialist clothing. If a volunteer needs to have specific safety clothing or equipment, this should be provided, such as a high-vis vest, a hard hat or steel-toe cap boots. Meals. It's good practice to pay for the actual cost of food, particularly if the volunteer activity is carried out for over 4 hours or during a meal time. It's a good idea to set a limit for this. Good practice. It's good practice for the volunteer to complete a claim form, which sets out the name of the volunteer, the date the expenditure was incurred, the reason it was incurred and the amount. It should also have a space for a signature of authorisation and one to show the volunteer has received the payment. Receipts or bus tickets should also be attached. The payment, no longer as a consideration, does not have to be of financial value. This doesn't mean that volunteers can't receive expenses or training that's relevant to their role, but it does mean that when these things are given to volunteers, it should be clear that no payment for their work or time is intended. Neither does it mean that volunteers can never be rewarded. The rule of thumb is that a volunteer should not be rewarded with anything that either represents a cost to the organisation or that the volunteer could use to make a profit. Perks or benefits that could be seen to have value may be regarded as consideration. This could include training that's not necessary to carry out the volunteer's role. Many groups and organisations reward their volunteers by holding events such as awards, evenings, parties and dinners, and this is perfectly acceptable. It's good practice to pay volunteer expenses so they are not out of pocket, and here's some useful guidance. A volunteer can claim expenses incurred during the course of their volunteering. Expenses must be agreed with the organisation first. Only reimburse actual out-of-pocket expenses. Do not pay a flat rate. Always keep receipts and paperwork. Expenses can cover travel, food, care, postage and phone calls. The Volunteer Centre has a wide range of resources for those who manage volunteers. These range from sample documents, information sheets, we can give you links to online resources, and also potential networks that may help with your volunteer management, where you can connect with other people who manage volunteers. There's no such thing as a silly question when you're involving volunteers, and we're more than happy to help you if we can. Please do get in touch and we'll do our best to help. Here are our contact details, email, direct phone number, and also our Facebook and Twitter feeds. There's loads of information on our website, which is volunteeringcounts.org.uk, including details of our training. We do regular posts on our blog sharing information, ideas, events, and also have an opportunity of the day every single day for local volunteer involving groups. So why not get in touch and see how we can help you get the very best of your volunteer programme.